How do you see achievement differently today, particularly in the world that we're living in, growing up with today's 20 and 30 something?
I wrote this book. One thing that might be relevant is this book I wrote back in 2012, So Good They Can't Ignore You, where I was looking into this question of how do people end up loving their work. And the first thing that came up in my research is that by far the most common piece of advice is follow your passion. The second thing that came up in my research is that is advice that's almost certainly going to reduce the probability that you end up passionate about your work.
Yep, that is true.
So this is something that I used to speak quite a bit about. What I discovered is that we hear this advice often, especially from successful people who really love what they do. They'll say, yeah, you should follow your passion. But what they really mean is you should follow the goal. Like you should subscribe to the goal of ending up passionate about your work, because it's great to be passionate about your work. It's much better to be passionate about your work than to be doing something that you're not. And this is almost self-evidently true. And people who experience it really want to emphasize that point, the people who are just coming up. But the way they say it is follow your passion. Now, they sound like they're the same, but they're not. The problem with saying follow your passion versus follow passion as a goal is that follow your passion assumes that you're wired for some sort of intrinsic pre-inclination towards a particular career path, and that the key to your success is just matching your job to this passion that already exists. We talk about passion like an intrinsic attribute, like your height or hair color. Obviously you have a passion. So the only question is, do you follow it? Do you not? Is it a practical passion if it's not? And what's clear in my research is that it's way more complicated. Most people don't come with some pre-wired, this is your quote unquote passion, what do you do about it? Secondly, we don't have a lot of evidence that says that matching your work to something you're interested in as a topic is likely to lead you to be satisfied or find meaning in your work. Like, we have a lot of research on what makes people satisfied and feel a sense of meaning in their work, and it has very little to do with matching the pre-existing interest. And so telling someone to just, oh, you have a passion, just follow it, that's the formula, it's like the Disney movie version of what's really a much more complex, like Scorsese-style movie, in the sense that it's much more layered and nuanced and interesting, how people end up passionate about their work. And so being willing to adopt a more complex understanding of workplace satisfaction, I think it is a great first step for someone who's just starting out. Start from the right understanding of the landscape before you boldly go marching out into it.
It's a good goal. It's not a good, the advice is not very good of how you do that. And I oftentimes describe it this way, is it's about applied curiosity. Take what those interests you have are and do things that help you scratch it and find it and those sorts of things. And I think that in some ways, for my sort of findings in my research, is these sort of meaningful, bigger things that are going to take you 6 to 12 months is really where a lot of that happens. And so do you see those sorts of things of taking bigger, sort of challenging things that you don't know exactly if it's where you should be headed, but if you're curious about it and you can apply something towards it, is what sort of seems to work for people?
So a couple things that seem to be true. One is passion is definitely something that grows, right? It's something that's cultivated as opposed to a force that exists in its entirety in advance and fuels your whole career. And so just wrapping your mind around this notion that your passion for your work is something that you want to develop and intensify over time, as opposed to you want to find the passion and then use it to drive you through your work. So that's one thing. Another thing that seems to be true is that the things that make people really love their job are often rare and valuable. They're things people really want in their jobs. And so the right way to think about it is you have to be able to do something rare and valuable in order to have enough leverage to get those things in your career. So this is why I introduced this metaphor of career capital, that as you build rare and valuable skills, you can invest that capital into traits like autonomy and impact and creativity and connection that makes people really love their work. So if you want something great in your job, you first have to ask, what can I do greatly in order to exchange for those great attributes? No one will just give them to you. And then that brings us back to what you're saying, which is, yes, actually a good way to start acquiring that career capital is to do hard, interesting things and get better as you do them. And using your interests, your pre-existing skills, your background as a starting point for identifying those projects, I think makes all the sense in the world. What is different about this philosophy than saying follow your passion is that it really lowers the threshold. Right? So instead of saying, no, there's one thing you're meant to do, and if you missed it, you're in trouble. Right? Look, I've been looking at your DNA and you're meant to be whatever, a social media brand manager for a mid-market, mid-city sports publication. If you miss that goal, you're going to be unhappy. It lowers the bar from the one true passion model to saying, no, what matters is career capital. So choose one of the things you're interested in, something maybe you've got started on, something you already have some skills in. Great, that's a great starting place. There might be 5 or 6 things that pass that test. That's fine. Choose one of them. It's not going to be better than anything else to use your interest and skills to help you get started, but don't think that that's all that matters. Next comes the hard work, which is start to do things. Finish things, learn things, build skills. Based on what you discover, pivot, pick the next project, do that, build more skills, get better, learn more about the world, pick your next project. Your passion will start to grow because as you get better, you're going to like your work more, but more importantly, you're going to gain more control of your career. You're going to gain more information about the world of work. You're going to put those things together to steer yourself towards increasingly meaningful and satisfying waters. You're going to look up 15, 20 years later. You're going to love what you're going to do. Then you're going to turn around and confusingly tell kids coming up behind you, yeah, follow your passion. Follow your passion.